All right. I always forget to do that. All right. So here we go. We're going to go over questions at the end of the presentation, and Carol will be monitoring those. We will answer all the questions we can in the time we have. Any questions we don't get to, we will actually create answers to it. And the Q&A summary will be posted to the Finance Peer Group section under Branch Tools after the presentation, along with a copy of the PowerPoint presentation and the recording of this session. So I am going to take a poll, and there are 6 questions to the poll. There are multiple possible answers to the questions. You pick one and submit it at the end. This is our chance to get to know a little bit more about you. So stop share. All right, so you can respond to the questions and we'll see what the result is. Should take just a minute.
Kathy, there's a request when you go back to the PowerPoint to put it in regular slide mode.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Kathy, the question number 1 about the website, I mean, I know it's there, but I haven't felt the need to like look there. So, but I do know that there is one. I don't seem like I have a very good choice there.
Well, you could just say you're familiar with it.
Okay. I'm not. I haven't really looked at it.
Oh, okay.
But I do know it's there if I had questions.
Yeah, so you know where to look to answer your question.
So I don't want it to look like I know nothing. You guys do a good job of advertising, and the website is very helpful if you need to go there and look.
Yes. Sometimes it's a good place to start just to get to the forms, especially the ones that are online. It's a good access point. Everybody finished with the poll? Winona, you have a question? Or Yvonne?
Yes, I'm not able to scroll past number 5 on the screen. It won't scroll to number 6.
It's scrolling here. Not sure why.
Well, it shows 6. It says 5 of 6 answered, and then I can't submit it.
That can be your screen resolution is different than the presentation. And so
Okay, sorry.
a piece of it gets cut off.
Well, it won't submit, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you need to get that.
No, wait a minute. Can I share this office? Is it legal to really?
All right. Are we ready to end or still need a little bit of time? Okay, I'm going to end the poll.
In a few weeks, as far as I'm concerned, with the San Francisco Giants.
And here we have, only one person has memorized it, and that's not me. I didn't fill out the poll. But it looks like a fair amount of you have looked at it, and some of you are not aware of it. So we're going to go over a little bit of where to look for answers. What is your branch position? This is great. We've got a lot of new branch finance treasurers and returning and other branch officer. And so for some reason, nobody's just interested in the topic of government filing. So leave that to the accountants. Again, we have most of our attendees are in the 50,000 and below. We have two in the 50 to 200,000 and one over, none over 200,000. But we do have some that are not quite sure yet. Branch status, we have a fair number of C3s, mostly C4s, and some don't knows. And we have 14 in incorporated. So the S100 will be of interest. So most of you asked National to file. We'll go over that. But if you file it directly, and we have the two filing the EZ and one the 990. Can everybody see this? Results. So we have a good variety, I think.
see it.
Do you need more time to look at this? That was question one. Most have looked at some of the finance sections. Most of you are returning branch treasurers. And most come in under 50,000 in revenue, but we have a few big ones. And a fair number of 501c3. And surprisingly, that's a large number of incorporated branches. That's good. And most of you are asking National to file a 990N. All right. That's good. Okay. All right. All right. So those were our questions. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, a lot of you said that you didn't, you were somewhat familiar, but quite a few said you were not familiar with the website or where to look. So this describes this page, which you will have access to, tells you to go to the California homepage, click on branch tools, click on branch finance. The government documents are in one of the 6 boxes under branch finance, and this is the one we're focusing on today and that you really will find useful for filing your forms. The other one is California peer groups. That is useful for looking at prior peer group sessions and meeting materials, and this is what will be posted there later. So if we go into,
You just had it and then it
I
disappeared.
know, it
Yeah.
disappeared. Okay, so I'm going to bring it up.
Also, it would be ever so helpful for us to read them if you would enlarge your page and then put it on slideshow, start at current slide.
It's
It
on slideshow now, but yeah, I will enlarge it as we need it.
we need it. It's
Yes,
hard to read.
I'm sure. Yeah, this is a dense session, and we've tried to put a lot of information on the PowerPoint so you can use it as a reference tool. And so it's going to be easier to read as a reference tool if you download it and copy it from the website when it's available. Okay, so here is the home page, and you see up here is branch tools.
You're not on it yet.
Oh,
It's not shared.
Yes.
all right. So if you click on branch tools up here on the page, you see these. Here are the peer groups, and if you went in there and clicked on finance, you will see the prior sessions and meeting materials. But this is the one we're going to focus on today, and that's branch finance. Here are the 6 boxes that you get on various topics. And some of them we will use in the future, but they are there for a reference. This is the one we're focusing on today. So it is managing deadlines and filings. This is an older webinar that is posted through this link. This current one will have the most current information. So if you reference it when it's posted, it will be most helpful. This is what you're going to use to access the IRS, the Franchise Tax Board, the forms, and filing them. So if you click on that, this is a list of everything that's there if you want to look at it. But if you want to actually get it, you click here. So this is what you're going to do in each one of these, such as Ask National to file for your branch. It tells you how to do it. It links you to where you do it. So that's just a rough information on how you use the site. So if you have any questions, we're going to go on to the deadlines. And Carol is going to go over that a little bit, but as we hit each one, we'll go over it in more detail.
Thanks, Kathy. So just to give you an overview, we have the requirement to report to both the federal government and the state government. And so they have slightly different forms and slightly different filing deadlines. So this page just gives you an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight, and also, for your reference of what are the things that you need to keep in mind. First of all, the form that I think everybody recognizes as important for nonprofits is the 990, which it means the information return, because generally it's not a tax return since we don't pay income taxes, but it's a way of reporting to the government that if you're a nonprofit organization, how you are managing and providing public information about what your operations are like. So the 990 comes in sort of 3 flavors. The 990N is for organizations that, oh, I do see that somebody is still unmuted. Laura, I think that's you. The 990N is for organizations that have less than $50,000 worth of income. Then for the smaller but medium-sized organizations, if their income is between 90 and 200,000 or 50 and 200,000, they file what's called the 990EZ. And if the rare for AUW branch over 200,000 would file a full 990. The 990N, that great thing is that National will file this for you, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. If you have certain kinds of payments, you may have to file what are called 1099. So that's a report of miscellaneous income to some individual or entity. And the 1096 summarizes what all those are. So that's the federal government portion. Now, California is even a little more complicated. California has something similar to the 990. It's called a 199, and they have it in the variety N, $50,000 or less, or 199 income over 50,000. Then you have the slightly more detailed version, the Charitable Trust Treasurers Report, or the CTTR1. And to renew your registry as a charitable organization, the RRF form, and also for those branches that are incorporated, which was about half of us, I think, it has, you file a statement of information every 2 years based on when you were incorporated. And then we'll talk a little bit later about raffle report and sales tax reports. So that's just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to cover this evening. But let's go on. Kathy, back to you, I think, to talk about
Yes,
990.
it is. So, as we mentioned, you can ask National to file your 990 in, and most of you would be in the category where that is possible. Deadline, though, is October 15th because National needs time to collect all the information from the branches and consolidate it into their filing. So it's an opt-in. One thing to remember is that you have to opt in every single year. You can't say yes and that National will then do it there from that year onward. But if you say no any particular year, if a couple of you are filing directly, if you decided to let National do it, because that's easier, you could go in there and say yes. You may have a reason for doing it yourself, but if that changed, you could ask them to do it. So this, you're going to go into Hub. And what I'm going to show you is the section we already went into. We're already in to the here that I clicked on. And here is the section that says Federal IRS Form 990 Ask National. And it tells you the deadline, the opt-in, who can use it, and how you actually make this help. So I am going to let you know, and Alice is here. I was the treasurer. It's coming up on, you sign in. This is going to hook you up actually to the sign in, but I've already done it. So you go to my affiliations, and as CFO, I am on everybody's branch, as you probably have seen. And I'm going to go into Beach Cities because I was the former treasurer there, and I filed a couple of years asking National to do it. So you can see I get to Beach Cities. It's a red box, and you can see down at the bottom is tax information. And this is what you will get, and this is the prior 2 years information is on here. So if it's been filed in the past, you'll see through National, you'll see the information. This is what you're clicking for to get to the current year. So you're going to click on that. If you want to see what the information looks like, they're asking for the EIN number and just asking you to represent that gross receipts were less than 50,000, and that's gross receipt. There's no deductions for expenses, and it would be related to your branch. Ask you, do you want AEUW to file? If you wanted to actually respond to them and say, no, I don't, you could do that and send that into them as well. So let's say your answer, yes. They ask, has a branch been terminated? Who's the principal officer? That's going to be the finance person who's responsible for the reports. You give the address and website. The tax year, you don't have to input. You're going to click on this, which is fiscal year ended 2024, and you're the submitter. You will also find a place if you click on this, when you sign up and say, yes, I'm going to do it, it gives you a way of clicking through the answers. So it just has a selection, gross revenues, has a business been terminated, places for you to put in your name and your email. This is where the email address, that's very important because National will send an email to you around the 1st of December to let you know that your 990N has been filed. So you want to make sure you have that. And this is addresses, website address, and you can see it's already saying the tax year ended there. I'm not going to advance to next because I'm not the one that's going to file this. So that's where we are on that. And if you have any questions, be sure to enter it into the chat and we'll go over later. Now, some of you are saying we file a 990 in directly. And here, what we're doing is giving you the information, the questions that you're going to have to answer to input into the 990. And you're submitting the 990 in, and you are also accessing a portal to the IRS to do that. And again, if we went into, I'm going to have to change this again. Once I'm out of that site, I have to go to, you're going to get to see this link, branch tools again, finance, government, filings here. So if you're going to file any 990, you click here to get access to the e-postcard, here to the 990 Easy, and here to the 990. Now, there is a little squiggle that you have to deal with. Here, you have an IRS portal, and they give you instructions, and there's a PDF here that you can cut and paste into your browser and get a copy of on how to set it up for the first time if that's what you need to do. But the 990 Easy and the 990 now have to be filed electronically. And the IRS has not set up its own portal. You are going to have to use an IRS modernized e-file provider. And again, you can cut and paste, particularly on this one right here, and you can get a list of all the 990 MEF providers, the 990 Easy and 990, and they will actually list, which form are you trying to file that has to use these modernized e-file providers, and you click the form you're going to file, whether it's the Easy or the 990, and it will give you a list of providers, and you can check each one of them. They can go to the website, you can find out how much they cost and what's involved. So do we have anybody who's actually done this before? Any branches have already done their 990 Easy or 990 and e-filed it? If we do, if you can comment when we get to the Q&A, that would be good to hear, because we'd like to get that experience, who's doing it, and get some information posted on it. Now, there's one other thing. If a branch files a 990 Easy because total income is over $50,000 and fundraising gross income is over $15,000, you need to file Schedule G with the 990 Easy. Now, the California also has forms, some of them similar, like the 190N is similar to the 990N, that they require filing. And fortunately, the 199N is also e-filed. It's simple, and you can access it through the website. So it is November 15th. Again, National will not file state filings for obvious reasons. And it is required for all branches, just like the 990 is required for all branches. California has now conformed to the $50,000 federal limit. They didn't originally. And you complete it online. So you can access both forms for the 199N, again, using Branch Finance annual filings here. If you are filing the Form 199, you can cut and paste this into your browser and you will get detailed instructions. You look at the form and it's long, and the instructions, and they have a lot of general stuff that won't be applicable, but you scroll down a bit, you're going to get to the line by line instructions, and that can be very helpful. But again, you would go on exactly where I did, and you would be on this, and you want the Form 199 in, and you click on either 199 in or 199. So you can, again, be able to access those forms in the Franchise Tax Board website. Here, now this is a real dense one. But I'll bring it up a little bit. There's a time limit on how much time the state gives you to enter 8 points, information about your branch. You submit the e-postcard, you need your entity number or California corporation number, and this basic information. It's the branch name and mailing address, as well as the number, accounting period, your fiscal year, the FEIN number, gross receipt. For the 199 in, you enter the actual number. So your gross receipts, which all revenue you're identifying, no matter what the source is, if it's branch revenue, you put that number in. So they're not asking you to affirm that you're under 50. They want to know what it is. And then the principal officer's information. And that, again, is going to be you. You want to have that information in because you can get emails telling you that it's due. So you have 20 minutes to complete the page. If you don't complete it in that time, you have to start over. But if you get this information ahead of time, it's pretty easy to get it in 20 minutes. You get a confirmation number for your records when you're in, proof that you filed it. And I would copy that just so you have a paper trail of it or save it. But then you log out just to maintain security, and you can access and submit the form. Again, going to here where you're accessing the form here. And now, Indrani is going to go over some other California forms that are very important, especially the RRF1 and the CTTR1. California, when they went up to 50,000, the under 50,000 to conform with the federal, decided, being California, that they didn't have enough detail. Maybe they worried about the 25 to 50,000 and they still wanted to collect that extra detail. So they added to the RRF1, you're going to submit that detail on a CTTR1. So I'll turn it over to Indrani and she can let us know more about those forms.
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy, next slide. Yeah, make it a little bit smaller because cannot see the whole thing.
Can people read it?
Yeah. Okay. The RRF1, the purpose of the annual registration renewal fee report is to notify Attorney General's office that AAW branch has no unlawful diversion of charitable assets. RRF1 report is due on November 15th for the preceding fiscal year. That means the year ended 6/30/2024. All branches must file the report before or by the due date. Extension for filing form RRF1 will be allowed if the branches received an extension from IRS for filing 990 or 990 easy. From a form RRF1 must include the appropriate renewal fee based on the branch's revenue. And now is the completion procedure. These are all listed in the following slide in the form, but these are just, I'm going over to mention that what needs to be done on the top is a branch name, address, zip code, contact information, and there are some tax information that has to be filed. If you do not remember charity registration number, there is a website you can highlight and include in your browser to go into that site to get the charity number, then organization number, also or FTB organization number or your corporation number that franchise tax board gives you, and finally it will be your EIN number, the organization's EIN number. You have to include all that, and then you have to include complete annual reporting period and activities, that means your revenue, expenses, and total assets. And that will be part A. Part B will be some questions you have to answer. And make sure you are answering all questions. Otherwise, Attorney General office will reject the form and return back to you. Kathy, next slide, please. This is the actual form. Can we make it a little bit?
Yeah, what I think I've done is split
Maximum.
it into two parts. You look at the numbers that you're inputting and then the questions.
But can't you show this as a slideshow? Somebody put it in the chat.
I've
Right
got it
now,
on. I have
Yes.
it. I have it on slideshow.
No.
You
no,
need to
that's not
click on
slideshow.
the green arrow in the top left to enlarge it to fill your whole screen. No, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
it's
still
just
not-
harder for me to shift back and forth to the web, but let's do this for now.
Okay, and this is the actual form. As I mentioned, the top portion, left side of top portion will be the name, address, contact information, and right side will be your charity registration number, your FTB franchise tax board number and EIN number, and then and you can see the fee schedule based on your revenue. And part A is the accounting period. Beginning will be 7/1/2023 and ending will be 6/30/2024. That is the reporting period you are reporting right now before November 15th. And these are the total revenue, some sample numbers we have created to show you as an example. And your actual number will be based on your branch activity. Revenue, total asset, program expenses, and total expenses. You have to separate your program expense from your total expense, and that you have to include. And part B is the very important. Please do not exclude any line item. You have to answer everything. And you can see the number 6 is the raffle that Carol will talk in detail later on. And once you complete the form, you have to sign it, date it, and write a check based on your revenue. And you have to include this form with another form, which is the annual treasurer report. This is a very new report, I think last 6-7 years. Attorney General's office is asking to submit this detailed annual treasury report with RRF1 report. RRF1 report is the summary report, and CTTR report is the detailed report. Same thing with CTTR report. Kathy, next slide, please. Oh, one more thing. This is the sample worksheet, just a sample worksheet to show as an example how we derive the numbers, the revenue and program expenses, and the asset. Asset will come from your balance sheet, means your cash area. And that is the numbers just showing you as an example. Kathy, next slide, please. This is CTTR overview. Treasurer report has to be filed by the branches, those whose revenue is under 50,000. And due date is November 15, and it should go with the report RRF1. Now, two together, they want to see the numbers are matching, and any question, definitely branch will get that email letter from state. Also over here, that website, you can highlight that website and include in your browser, and you go to the state government, Attorney General's office on the website, and you will find more detailed information over there. And same information you will include in the top portion of the CTTR form, but bottom portion will be a little bit different. Kathy, next slide, please. Yes. Can you make a little bit brighter, Kathy? Yes. You can see that top portion, again, you have to put your branch name, address, contact person's name, email, and right side the same number, charitable number, corporation number, your EIN number, and accounting period, same thing, you will put the way you did it for RRF1 form. Over here, it will be a detailed balance sheet. You have to include the balance sheet, all items that you have in your financial statement, and liability same. And this one thing is this total asset must match with the RRF1 line item total asset. This detailed asset should be detailed when you will add this number, total asset line item must match with that. Also, revenue statement, you have to income statement, your branch income statement, you have to put the revenue items based on whatever the requirement over here, and your expenses also. And then other expenses you can include. All the other expenses should be included, whatever the line items is not separated over here, you can combine that in the under the other expenses. We have a sample worksheet we created, income statement and Kathy, next slide, income statement and balance sheet. Okay, this is the balance sheet information, and you can see the assets and liabilities, and that is showing, this is a sample, we create a sample worksheet and sample balance sheet that on top portion of asset and liability it goes. And the next slide will be revenue statement. Kathy, next slide, please. Next slide. Balance sheet and the bottom, the next one, the revenue statement. Yes. And this is the revenue statement. And these items you can see, we just created a sample for example purpose, but it will be definitely different for each branch. And you can see that how we created the other expenses. And this is the way you have to enter, but very important things to remember, your detailed worksheet must match with the RRF1, that summary worksheet. That's why that is a very important portion to remember when you will file CTTR1 form and RRF1 form. And now we will go to SI 100, Statement of Information. This is this is not a technical form. This is only informational form. Statement of information, only you have to file if you are incorporated, and first filing will be 90 days after the 90 days of filing the, after 90 days of filing the article of corporation, you will file in initial registration you will do. And after that, every 2 years, you have to do the filing. I found out that, filing fee will be $20. And if you have a domestic, and this is for all the nonprofit, those who do not have the investment, the number one. Number two is if the nonprofit branch has a domestic and foreign stock, then their filing fee is $25. $20 is fee, $20 is regular fee, and $5 is registration fee. And this, you can highlight the website and include in your browser, and go to the website, Secretary of State in California website, and that has a very detailed, nice information. Next slide will be the form. This form is very important. The 3 officers of the organization information you have to put over here. And every 2 years, they like to, every 2 years, they have to, they like to see, because a lot of changes happen in the organization. Sometimes CEO, CFO, they are leaving. That's why this is updated information. Secretary of State wants from all the nonprofit incorporated organization to file it every 2 years. I think that's it. And if you have any questions, then we can answer that once in Q&A session. Now I will give it to Carol. Carol is expert with all that raffle. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Indrani. So as they mentioned in the beginning, and then as Indrani pointed out, raffles are something that the government takes some interest in because we consider them to be gambling. Essentially, people who buy a raffle ticket are buying a chance to win. And so there are some special rules. One of the main ones is that 90% of the amount raised must go to the sponsoring organization. And so, you know, we need to keep that in mind in terms of the kind of prizes that you're going to have and the cost of the tickets and so on. An application has to be submitted to hold a raffle, and it needs to be submitted 60 days ahead of the event. And if you do think you'll be doing several raffles, for example, the branch might do a small raffle at each of the branch meetings or at several branch meetings. So you can apply for all the dates that you think you might hold a raffle at once at the beginning of the year. And then you report on them all at once. The raffle year is a calendar year. So all the other forms are tied to the fiscal year, but for the state, they want to keep track of the raffles on a calendar year. So you report for all the raffles that were held during a calendar year, and that report is due February 1st of the following year. It is also required that if you made an application but didn't hold the raffle, you still file a report to give you some information. Kathy, could we go to the state website now just to show where this information is?
Just.
So again, this has the California State AEW website has a section on raffles.
I'm just going to have to stop sharing for a second.
Yep.
Because
see that enlarging it.
Enlarging it really.
It took away your ability to go back and forth. Yep.
Yep. So let me.
So
we're gonna. All right. So you want to go down to raffle reporting.
Raffle reporting, and go ahead and click on raffle regulations, because this gives you, first of all, access to a really nice video from the Attorney General's office about how raffles are handled. And it also notes that if you have any individual prize, some kind of a huge raffle, and if you give any prizes that are over $600 in cash or fair market value, then you have a requirement to report that to the IRS because it's income to the person that won it. But the application form for raffles as well as the report form are found here. So that's that will help you with raffles if that's something that you undertake. The other item that we don't yet have on the website is sales tax. And actually, I just see that someone posted a question about silent auctions. Silent auctions are not raffles. They are essentially a sale. And so sales tax is something that, again, branches may have a requirement to pay sales tax on certain items. For example, you may sell t-shirts or tote bags or something with your logo on it. And auction sales of goods are also subject to sales tax for the full amount of the sales price. Food items might also be subject to sales tax, and there are some really complicated rules for food items. You have to look to see, is it cold or hot? Is it a beverage? And if so, what kind? Is it designed for consumption on site or for takeaway? Also consider that there are extensive health regulations for food sales. So I would say a strong recommendation is that, first of all, if you have fundraising events where a price includes food and entertainment, you're going to want to have some special record keeping to distinguish between those because they may be treated differently. And I would, again, suggest using a caterer who's going to be familiar with what the rules are regarding sales tax on food. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Publication 18 from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration has a lot of information about this. And again, once you get this PowerPoint, you can just highlight this URL and download this publications. But I've given you the pages for food specifics and for sales of items in terms of how to calculate that. Next slide. So in terms of how one pays sales taxes, first of all, you apply for a seller's permit. And if you're having 3 or fewer sales events per year, you can get a temporary permit for each. But if you're going to have something regular, like as I said, perhaps you sell t-shirts at every branch meeting, then it might be easier to just apply for a regular permit. You collect taxes at the time of the sale, but for ease of doing business, I think most branches would find it simpler to calculate the sales tax in the sales price rather than trying to have a very complicated formula where it's $15 for a t-shirt plus 7.27% or whatever the applicable sales tax rate is. Just go ahead and charge $16 or $17 for the t-shirt and let the sellers know or let the customers know that that is going to include the sales tax. You remit the sales taxes with the sales and use return. And since we're probably talking about small amounts, that's going to be once a year. And they will remind you when that is due. Now, many states or many cities and counties have a local tax that's added onto the state sales tax. And the state will collect those taxes and remit them to those local entities. But if you want to see what the tax rate is for your city or county, again, there's a link here to go ahead and look that up. We don't have at this point information about sales tax on our California AEW site, but we are going to try and get that added over the next few months. So you can look for more help there. And again, once you get the access to this PowerPoint, you'll have these URLs that you can easily copy and look things up on the state sales tax. So that's it for sales taxes, Kathy.
All right. So now I am going to discuss Form 1099 requirements. We addressed this last fiscal year and started to do it, and we also want to add these instructions and links to the website, and we'll be doing that. As I said, and you saw earlier, 1099 deadlines are later. Generally, you have to get it out to the recipient of the 1099, the individual. You are going to send it out with the deadline of January 31st. So we feel we have time to get this in a time for you to really get at it. In the meantime, we put the links on the PowerPoint because you can cut and paste into a browser and get access to this information and know how to get the forms and how to file them using the PowerPoint presentation. So, 1099s are used by the IRS to collect information of transactions by business entities. The reason they're collecting you, for example, a 1099 are being issued for payments that your branch made to somebody. Maybe you paid a caterer who is a sole proprietorship, or an individual, you paid for a fundraising event to cater the event. Well, you would have to issue a 1099 in that case. Well, what the IRS does is they get that 1099 from your branch saying, we paid so-and-so this much money. And then they look for that individual or that organization to make sure they included that 1099 revenue in their tax return. So it's a check for them. It is used for payments to individuals, partnerships, associations, sole proprietorships, but not corporations. And so if you're not sure of what kind of entity you're dealing with that you're paying, you can request a completed W-9 that would include that information. So you would give the vendor that W-9 and they would fill it out with the information. They have to identify what kind of organization they are and provide their tax ID and address. So then you have the information to mail that 1099 to the organization or individual. And the form is located here. Again, you can cut and paste and get that W-9. Generally, any payments made to a C Corp, S Corp, or an LLC treated as either a C or S Corp are exempt. And if you looked at the W-9 and the entity was filling that out, they are asked, if they list LLC, they will ask, is it a C, an S, or a partnership? And so if it's a C or S, you would not have to send a 1099. When a nonprofit receives rental income prizes or awards, if you issue the nonprofit a 1099, then you don't need to decide whether they're using that revenue for their tax-exempt income or income unrelated to the charitable purpose that might require reporting. Now, if it's related to the mission of the nonprofit, they don't necessarily have to pass that on and use it, but it depends on whether as a branch you want to make that determination or have the charitable organization make it. Payments, you only report on a 1099 if the cumulative payments made within a calendar year, or on a calendar year basis with this, is 600 or more. If it's under 600, you do not need to issue a 1099. So what are the types of services that you would report on a 1099? There's two types that we're addressing because these are the most common types that a branch might use. A 1099 NEC is non-employee compensation. It might be to a CPA, tax services or bookkeeping services organization, a speaker for your program. Now, it's unlikely that you're going to have a speaker at one of your meetings that you're going to give $600 or more as a fee. And it's cumulative. So if you have 5 or 10 speakers at your meetings at $60 a piece as an honorarium, that wouldn't count because you didn't give it any one of them. It has to be to the same individual or qualifying organization. But you could have entertainment that such as musicians or other entertainers at your fundraising event where you would pay that much money and you would issue the 1099. On the 1099 miscellaneous, it can be attorney services or rent, and then we're going to discuss further awards that also would require 1099 miscellaneous. But you could, if you had attorney services, why they split tax services and attorney services, I don't know, but they did. And rent branches frequently pay. Again, it has to equal or exceed $600 and pay to this type of organization. I'm thinking that the debate is over. All right. And what types of rent could we have? Office space, venue for a fundraising program, equipment rental, booth at an event. But again, it has to equal or exceed $600 and to be a qualifying organization to send to. Now, as I said, a 1099, miscellaneous would be issued to anyone you provided with an award, a prize. We don't necessarily do prizes, but certainly awards. And again, it's if they are equal to or greater than $600 per calendar year. And the award could be cash. It could be a non-cash payment of meals, lodging, travel to attend a program. And that kind of describes NICWSL. Awards such as NICWSL travel are reportable on a Form 1099 miscellaneous when the branch pays for the travel expenses. I did get a little bit of feedback from National saying, well, they recommended that the branch enter the registration and pay the registration fee directly into NICWSL. And if, I'm not sure that they have a definitive answer yet that would be excluded. If you determined that your travel expenses were pretty close or exceeding $600, you could technically also include the registration fee. That depends on your evaluation of it. The other thing that branches frequently do is to have scholarship programs, and many use SPF. They set up their program with an SPF. This is more likely to be a branch that's 501c4 and wants the donors to be able to deduct their donations from their taxes, and so they have it run by SPF. Now, just to let you know, SPF will no longer issue a check to the individual scholarship recipient. It will have to go, I believe, to an educational institution. Partly because the IRS has the position that scholarships, as they define the term, are non-taxable and non-reportable, but all of the IRS requirements are met. And generally, it has to be a qualifying institution used for qualifying expenses. And this is the kicker. You may feel, all the institutions qualify that they're giving the scholarships for, but the scholarship has to be used to pay for tuition and fees required for enrollment and attendance at the educational institution. And some, that would include fees that institutions tack on for athletic fees or use of facilities. That, a lot of colleges will have various fees, and if you had to pay them to attend, those would be included in the coverage. But also for fees, books, supplies, and equipment required for courses at an educational. So if they mention equipment, you pretty much have to have some sort of computer or laptop to attend any college now. So that probably would qualify. But it does not include living costs, staying at the dorm, apartment costs, travel costs to and from the university, food. Any of those costs that may be incurred for living expenses by the individual are not included in here. So you really have an issue to consider if you are running your own scholarship program. How do you want to make sure that it is qualifying under IRS regulations? So you might want to work with the university and remit the funds to the university on behalf of the student. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that and you want to be able to give it to the award recipient to use as needed, then you would issue a 1099. The other thing is tech trek that we've talked about, and we've gone over this before. If your branch, let's say your branch is a 501c4, you receive donations from your branch members and other donors, and they've written checks, and all your branch does is amass that. The treasurer taking care of tech trek uses the tech trek deposit form, amasses the deposits, and sends them in to the camp that they expect to need funds at to send campers. That's just a pass-through. The branch is not the donor. It's clearly the individuals donating who are the donors, and individual donors do not have to have a reporting requirement of sending those recipients a Form 1099. In fact, they don't really know who the recipient is at that point. So donations to AEUW California SPF, even here, let's say that the branch is a 501c3 or has a foundation, and they have an endowment, and they're using the income from that endowment, and they're selecting their recipients for a camp sponsorship, and they write a check from the branch to the camp, and they send it in. It's made payable to AEUW California SPF. It goes to a branch or to a camp, and then it is sent on to SPF, and it gives the branch credit to send campers. Now, is that the same thing? Because here it's not an individual, it is branch. What the AEW California SPF CPA has given information and opinion to SPF is that the donations are not to individuals based on not giving individuals checks, or when the donations are made, you haven't selected anybody. So they're saying because you are actually donating it to the camp, and therefore it's a donation for camp operations. This is a 501c3 organization, and you would not need to issue a 1099 to the camper. Now, if a branch looks at their situation, how they're selecting campers, how they're funding them, and they determine they do need to issue a 1099, then they should do so. If they've gotten, their own information that says, no, in this case, you need to issue a 1099, they would need to do that. But this is information that I wanted to make sure was passed through to the branches for them to have. Now, here, how to report the payments. You need this 1099 recipient information for all 1099s. You can get this by giving them a W-9. Again, you want to know if that organization is going to qualify. It's the type of organization that needs to get a 1099. You put the name, address, and TIN, and all this information, whether they qualify and what their information is all on that W-9. If you're issuing a 1099 miscellaneous, rent payments to go to box 1, other payments to box 3. That includes prizes and awards. And if you're issuing a NEC, payments for services go in box 1. Here, these are the forms. This is all deadlines of which part goes to whom. But one of the biggest things to pick up from this is that you are issuing the copy A that you're going to give to the IRS. You're going to file with the IRS with your cover 1096 summary form, and it has to be scannable. So if you went onto a website and you downloaded it, it's not usable, and the IRS will reject it. So I'll go over that in a little bit. But in any case, the recipients copy must be mailed by January 31st, and that can be downloaded. That can be off the website. And the scannable 1099s plus the scannable 1096 must be mailed postmarked to the IRS no later than February 28th. On the non-employee compensation, both are no later than January 31st. You have to accumulate all, the number of the miscellaneous NECs that you're filing and report it on Form 1096. And again, that has to be scannable. If you issue 10 or more of these forms, you have to e-file for all 1099s. So where can you get these forms? You can obtain the forms from the IRS, and the advantage of obtaining them from the IRS, they're going to mail them to you. So you're going to get a hard copy, and that's scannable. So you get the full load that will allow you to file with the form they mail you. You can order them from IRS. Again, at this location, you copy this, you just go down to the form that you want, and you put the number you want. So if you need 3, you can order just 3. If you go to, let's say, an office supply store, they may say they sell it in quantities of 10 or 20 and you don't need it. And it's not like you can save them for the following year because it's a new form each year. But you can get them from the post office, have to be the scannable red line form. So we now have time for questions, and Carol was tracking those.
Yep, thank you. We have a few questions. The main one is, yes, we will be providing this PowerPoint so that you'll have access to the slides and be able to click and highlight all those URLs that we're including. And we're not 100% sure how quickly that will happen, but it will be within the next few days. I would say that will be online for you. So that will, and I think a couple of the early questions were answered. One is National does confirm by email that they are filing the 990N. And again, you'll probably want to keep a copy of that just so you have a paper trail. Someone asked about the difference between assets and revenue, and then the very next slide answered the question. So we took care of that. One good question, and Indrani or Kathy, maybe you know the answer to this. Is there a requirement to file the RRF1 and CTTR1 online this year, or is paper filing still okay for that?
Indrani, did you want to?
Paper filing is you have to do, because I checked it. I didn't see any filing by form can be filed. However, payment, there is no payment process by the credit card is not. I didn't see it.
Okay.
And that's why paper filing will be done this year also. But they are working on that. I noticed that it will come maybe next year, maybe we can file online.
Yeah, I think that sort of backs up the trend that Kathy, you talked about too, that the IRS and the state both are going to more electronic filing. It's much more efficient for them and for us as well. So, so here's a question that I need a little clarification. This is from Jackie. If there are no charitable assets that go through our branch, do we need to be in good standing with the Registry of Charitable Trusts? I would say, yes, we all need to be in good standing, because by virtue of the fact that we are a charitable nonprofit organization, all the assets that go through our branch are considered charitable assets. Was there something else that was not clear in terms of how we relate to these forms?
Okay, so we are not in good standing with the Registry of Charitable Trust and haven't been for quite a while. And we haven't gotten back into good standing. Well, first of all, because I haven't had the time, but now I do. But I look at the questions I have to answer and I don't know how to answer them. So how can I get help at getting back into good standing with the Registry of Charitable Trust? That and the fact that it costs $500 and we only have like 30 members. So it's like our entire branch revenue for a year to get back into standing.
You mean, is this because of a fine that they want to charge you?
Yeah. Yeah, to get back into good standing, it's a $500 fine.
Wow. Okay. Well, Kathy, maybe we can take this one offline. I had some experience with another organization, not AUW, when I became treasurer and discovered that the IRS didn't think they had received their 990. And the fine that they wanted to charge was about $4,000 because it was $10 a day for all of the period that was late. But we did manage to argue them out of that by, showing that the previous treasurer had in fact filed it. But yes, definitely, Jackie, be sure we have your contact information, and
Yeah.
Kathy, I will follow up on
Yeah,
that.
submit that. And, I think I put on the slide deck as well, that if you have a question that's really kind of outside the scope and we can't get into in any detail, the question can come into CFO at aauw-ca.org, and that will come into me, and then it can be addressed by the finance committee to try to come up with that, and see also if branch support has worked on this at all as well. And anytime that the franchise tax board or the IRS wants to charge a fine, always try to get it waived. The request for waiver with a reason should always be step one.
Yeah, too bad, but that's it. It's a good illustration of why it's important to know about these filing dates and requirements, because
I did talk to two financial CPAs. One who was an expert in charitable trusts, and both of them said that we don't need to be in good standing. So that's the other reason I haven't pursued it very strongly.
Well, part of it is if you're not in good standing, if anybody looked up you as a charitable organization, they would see that. So,
but
if that
we're not soliciting. I mean,
yeah,
we solicit
if that's
funds
unimportant
for AEW National, but not for the branch.
Yeah,
there's no charitable contributions that go through our branch.
So you're just collecting for the fund and passing it through
for AUW fund and for Tech Trek.
Yes, but you might have you collect dues, right?
Yeah, but national dues are deductible. Branch dues are not.
No, I mean just your branch dues.
Yeah,
I know your branch dues are not deductible, but that is income to the branch.
Right, but it's not a charitable.
No, that is true, but you still have an asset in that.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, yes, we'll take this one offline for sure.
Yeah.
One last thing, I'm going on vacation, so I'm not going to reach out until November.
Okay,
that's fine.
Great, thanks. One question: when do I file the SI 100? Every 2 years? And Indrani or Kathy, again, do you want to address that?
Yeah, first filing will be 90 days after the article of corporation has been established. And after that, every 2 years, and due date will be based on the first time that registration happened, initial registration.
Right,
date.
and I'm presuming they'll send you a reminder.
They do. You do get a reminder. I know as CFO, and Raleigh knows that you get a reminder, and if it's coming into CFO at AUW, they're getting whoever's the current CFO.
Right. So there were a couple of questions about the raffles, and silent auctions, again, are not considered raffles. They are a sale. And in terms of if you're selling donated items, well, here is something from the publication that I mentioned that has all the basics of information on sales tax. And it says sales of items at rummage sales, bazaars, carnival booths, community events, and other fundraisers are considered sales. And so I would think that most items at a rummage sale are donated. And so, yes, you would collect sales tax on those. Another person wanted to, how do you calculate the selling price to include the tax? And so just kind of as a simple example, if you're selling a t-shirt that you want it to, you're going to sell it with the price to the customer being about $15, essentially the taxable portion of that is maybe $13.90. And so that's what you're going to pay the sales tax. It's not double taxed. And let's see, someone, the proof of student payment of tuitions and fees, is that proof that it meets the the IRS requirements, and I'm assuming that is from a confirmation from the university?
Yes, well, the student has to produce a confirmation from the registrar that they've paid their fees and they're enrolled in a certain number of classes before we issue the check to the student.
Mhm.
So the question
Yeah.
is, do we have to give them a 1099 as well?
Well, if you've shown that they've used the scholarship for the those qualifying expenses, you would not. And you would keep that documentation if you ever got asked about it. I doubt that a branch is going to be audited on these, but we're trying to make sure that everybody's aware of what the requirements are. So if you've gotten proof that here were the fees and they're greater than the scholarship we provided, and the student represented that's how they were used.
Oh, okay, well, what's tricky about this is that they pay by semester. So they're going to pay in September, and maybe the scholarship was $1,500. And so maybe that came to $750, but they're going to have to pay another $750 in January. So they're not paying it all at once, but we're not going to give them 2 checks and be carrying that stuff over from year to year.
But do you request that they show you the second semester?
We don't normally request that they show us the second semester.
That might be one thing, that they also give you the same a copy of the same information the second semester.
Okay, I'm concerned about collecting. When you issue a 1099, do you need the social security number of the person?
Yes, you do.
Okay. We do not have a secure way of keeping student social security numbers. I feel that makes us extremely vulnerable for having that kind of paperwork around. I mean, we don't have a safe deposit box, okay?
Right.
So what do you recommend for that?
Well, you know, if I were the branch treasurer, I would be looking to pick up that extra piece of information. So when you initially release the check, you could have the students say that they use the, part of it for tuition. Remember, it's also fees. It's not just tuition, it's whatever
tuition fees, books, right? And you might
books,
not buy
exactly.
all the books at once. So we include a statement that says this is what the money's to be used for. They show what usually they're only going to give us a statement that shows that they registered and what those fees were for that time of that initial registration.
So
we don't collect
the first
anything
semester
else afterwards. But it might not total $1,500. Books could cost you $1,500. We don't ask them to turn in the receipts for books.
Well, that would be one possibility to get it all cleared.
You're saying we should collect all that information to avoid sending a 1099.
Correct. And therefore, it's not taxable to the individual. Now, a student probably wouldn't pay taxes anyway, but that eliminates the need to send a 1099. You use some sort of means to demonstrate that the student is using it in a way that qualifies for the IRS definition of scholarship.
I'm just going to say it's very discouraging. It just makes me not want to be bothered. I mean, the amount of paperwork that you're requiring, or not you necessarily, but the IRS in terms of a $1,500 scholarship, which is a drop in the bucket, okay, for somebody that's going to college, okay, so that you don't have to even sending them a 1099. I don't know what they do with it. It's that amount of record keeping is really horrendous for the amount of money and the amount of time that we have, and also tracking the students to get, you know how many emails you have to send to students to get them to send you stuff?
No, I understand the difficulty of meeting the requirements of tax regulations. And if you ever want to peruse the IRS regs, you're going to find some really complicated things there. So that is, you can look for the best way to substantiate that scholarship definition is being met.
Okay, could they submit something from their webpage that shows what the fees are for full-time enrollment at the time that they turn that in? That would be available. I'm just not trying to have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You could pull that, and you could make sure that they re-enrolled for the second semester.
Or just use SPF and let them do the paperwork.
We
Yes.
don't have an SPF for us, so we've not set that up. So should we set up an SPF for to issue
We
the
just-
scholarships?
We just set up an SPF. It's not that difficult.
No,
So what
it
happens
really
with the
isn't.
SPF is that, okay, we send the money to the SPF and then the SPF issues the check to the student. Is that what happens?
They will not issue it to the student anymore. I've been told they will no longer issue to the student.
Okay, so if we send the money to the SPF is then gonna forward the money to the school, but that has to be done. I mean, you know, they get the checks in May. I don't know that the school administration is gonna get the check, okay, for that student in August or September. That's a really short turnaround for anything that's involved with college administration. It's just not gonna happen.
It does. We just started with SPF, and the nifty thing is the checks are not deposited in your account. They're written out to AAUW California SPF, and in the memo section, you'll put your branch, and you actually get a number for your account. You ship it, you send it with a form off to SPF, and then when it's time to pay the student their award, student provides you information, and SPF forwards the money to the institution where the student is registered. And any money that is not used, let's say they drop out for some reason and don't finish, or they never complete registration, then the money comes back to you, to your SPF.
Can I add something? This is Bakersfield, and we use SPF for like 15 years. You actually have to write a voucher to request the payment to SPF whenever you want it paid. So you figure out who your scholarship person is, and then you tell the college, these are the people, and these are their amount that I want paid for these people. And then they contact the college and find out what they need to do, or I just have them send it to our college foundation, and it's a turnaround of a month, and they can handle it. If they know that
We have
usually
5
you work through
different
a scholarship,
colleges. Okay.
you work through the college selection process and tell them the check is going to be coming from an entity, and then you just tell SPF, I want this sent to the college foundation.
But
Well, it
also,
sounds like there's several methods, but SPF is getting tighter on their controls to make sure that it's meeting the IRS definition. So it depends on when you say this is complicated, it requires all this bookkeeping and tracking, and you don't want that, then SPF seems like a reasonable alternative because that's what they're there for.
And so there are instructions where on setting up an SPF. Where is that information?
It's actually on the SPF website, AEW California SPF.
Okay.
And it gives all the details on setting up there.
It sounds like this might be a good topic for a future session.
I'm just trying to figure out how the student knows the school got the paperwork flow, okay, between we send the money to the SPF. Okay, after the student registers or whatever. I'm confused about the process, and I'd like more detail about the process on getting the students' tuition paid. In other words, who has to send, the kind of like a flow chart, you know, you fill this out, you send this to this person, this, you need this, and this, then the next thing goes to somebody else. And then how does the student know that the school got their check? Tracking stuff down with school administrators to find out if they received the payment is not necessarily easy, at least not with the state schools here in California.
Let's take this as a suggestion that we try to do a session on this and involve maybe someone from the SPF as well.
Yes,
so
and they could kind of walk you through the process and give us an outline of what the normal flow is and some sample colleges that they've been dealing with.
Right.
And then if we have any branches that are doing exactly that, that would be useful to get input from those
Yeah.
branches.
A couple
And
of
they-
you did speak up
Yeah,
about that,
you
so-
can just, again, email cfo@auw-ca.org and let me know if you have specific expertise in doing that through your branch.
Okay. And so the other option would be to do a 1099, get the student social security number and have that vulnerability with the branch. I'm just saying that's your option, right?
Yes, you could. You could say, here, we're just offering this award to you, and you use it for your expenses at college, and we're not putting a restriction on how you use it, and then you issue a 1099.
So,
Remember, the SPF's not free.
Right,
No,
they do
they
that.
will take 5% of your
5%.
donation.
So I just want to see that we are at our 8 o'clock
Yes.
concluding time. The recording of this session along with the PowerPoint will be available, so that may help to cover some of the things. Let's see here.
Do we have any questions that weren't answered? Because we
Yes,
we
Kathy?
typically look at those questions and answer them to post.
There's a couple questions
have-
about the
have-
SRS 100, because I don't
Yes.
think I've gotten a reminder and somebody else hasn't either.
Hmm.
Kathy?
Then
I have found out that, yes, RRF1, it can be filed online and it can be processed with a ACH or credit card, but that will be 2.3% they will charge.
yeah.
But detail, I will forward that to you. So that you
Right.
can.
And then for the couple people, there were a couple people who said they'd not gotten a reminder about the SI 100. Are there others that have gotten a reminder? The state
Yeah.
registration?
Yeah, I have, but part of the problem is, who is it going to? Remember, you file an S100 and you put down contact information. And if you just put down an individual and that contact information, that person changed, and you didn't file S100 to show that change, then it may not reach you and it may not be passed on to you. So that S100 is really a form that gives the state somebody to contact if they need to. I think Sharon.
This is a really quick question. Relative to silent auctions, when you're dealing with silent auctions, you don't necessarily know what your net is going to be. As a treasurer, at the end, could I sum all of the sales and use that as an expense of the event as sales tax?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
That
thank
would
you.
be, yeah, the sum total of the events. Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
because I couldn't figure out, somebody says their item is worth $100, that would be 107, but somebody bid 125. You wouldn't necessarily have the correct amount of information for sales
Right.
tax.
It's the amount that it's sold for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so I think the question about the registration is that not everybody has received a reminder, but we want to be
Yes.
sure that you have the correct information, that it's going to someone who actually would let you
Right.
know. And one of the suggestions is that if the person whose name is on it changes, go ahead and file a different one at that point. Also, someone mentioned that the cheapest service that could be found for filing, the online filing of the 990 EZ was $100. So that's sad.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that the IRS didn't set up a portal the way they have for the 990N.
Yeah.
And, that goes to budgeting or funding of the IRS. So
Yep.
It's on you.
Yep.
I think that was it. Barbara has a question. One last question I think we take.
Oh, the national and state dues. National and state dues are not counted as your
He's
revenue.
muted.
No,
He has to unmute.
just, you're on mute, Barbara?
And Joanne Beckett also has her. So Barbara, you're still muted. Oh,
He's telling I know, but she cannot unmute.
yeah, I see
There we go.
her.
There we go.
There.
Okay, there you got it.
Sorry, I'm on a different device.
Oh,
My question was about national and state dues. We've been going back because of this 50,000 revenue, because we have fundraisers. So fundraisers count as income, and if national and state dues collected count as revenues, along with our branch dues, we're over 50,000.
they don't count. They're a pass-through.
A pass-through.
Yeah, because you are required, generally, you may, let's say a member pays their national, state, and branch dues and hands you a check, and you deposit that into your bank, then you go in and record them on Hub, and you remit those dues immediately. So they are not revenue. You would record them as a liability because they're not your dues. You have to pass them through. You have to remit them to national, which will also remit the state dues. So they do not count as your revenue.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Great. And Joanne, you have a hand raised? Joanne Beckett?
Really? I don't see that.
She doesn't
She's
have
not
a camera
muted.
on.
She
She's
just
not
has the
muted.
camera off.
Yep.
Okay.
No, okay.
So I think we addressed most of the questions, but again, if we have something that's not answered, we will add it to the answers to the extent we can, and it will be posted with the Q&A summary. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope it was worthwhile and you'll be able to use all the links. And again, if you have any questions, cfo@aeuw-ca.org, and we'll try to get you an answer.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. Do you think some people may have walked away?
Well, now we've got just 9 people on. I think I just saved the chat, so that's good.
Good.
I just have to remember how it saves it.
Yeah, I need the, usually when it ends, it shows up.